Welcome to Tale Tracks, where reality meets the extraordinary. Join us as we delve into captivating real-life stories that inspire, resonate, and leave you in awe.
Olivia has had a tough time since childhood. At the age of 5, she nearly drowned in the river, but was miraculously saved by a nearby doctor who happened to be resting there. When Olivia was 12, during the tumultuous 1990s, her father, exhausted from a long shift driving a work truck, tragically perished in a sharp turn during a heavy snowstorm. Her mother held on a little longer, but when Olivia turned 14, she passed away in her sleep due to a sudden thrombosis, despite being relatively young. Thus, in her teenage years, Olivia became an orphan. Fortunately, her grandmother, Irina, who took on all the responsibilities of raising her granddaughter, was still alive. However, they lived on the verge of poverty, with their main diet consisting of potatoes grown in the garden, third-grade pasta, pancakes made from cheap flour, and often tea without sugar. And because Olivia dressed plainly, she quickly became an outcast at school, always trying to sit at the back of the classroom, avoiding attention, which led to a sharp decline in her academic performance, prompting the school principal to raise concerns about the negligent students' poor grades. Teenagers, lacking life experience and amidst hormonal fluctuations, often struggle to accurately and objectively assess people from the sidelines. Olivia wasn't heavily bullied, but she also wasn't invited into social circles, left to endure loneliness and despair. Nevertheless, many boys at school and on the streets would pause and look at Olivia differently for a moment as she passed by, striking, petite, with red hair, green eyes, and a slender figure, despite being dressed in old jeans and a stretched-out sweater. She was truly beautiful. But male teenagers, under the pressure of societal norms, weren't allowed to fully appreciate such beauty. Despite everything, Olivia was a creative individual. She wrote mature and poignant poetry for her age, excelled in drawing, and spent a lot of time reading books, although this did not help her improve her academic performance. Consequently, she possessed wisdom beyond her years, which greatly appealed to Irina, who saw in her granddaughter a reflection of her youthful self. Grandmother and granddaughter lived in a small log cabin, almost in the yard of majestic new multi-story buildings. The city, on the outskirts of which the heroine of this story lived, was gradually growing, reaching such a state that it encroached upon small villages that had peacefully existed next to the expanding industrial giant for centuries. But Olivia liked their little house. However, she wasn't fond of the proximity to the high-rise buildings. Firstly, builders cleared a large forest area to the ground when they were just digging foundations for future buildings. Secondly, when people quickly moved into the houses once they were built, the grandmother and granddaughter found themselves in the spotlight, making Olivia feel like she was part of some kind of show. Especially during gardening season, when their every move was observed by neighbors constantly smoking on their balconies as they weeded or hillied potatoes. Years passed. The girl completed 9 grades and enrolled in a college to become a pastry chef. Since the profession was essentially creative and the outcome of cooking often depended on the right mood, Olivia, realizing she had no other prospects in life, clung to this education, striving to study diligently and with complete dedication. She almost dropped out in her second year when she became an orphan due to the passing of her beloved grandmother, Irina. Fortunately, the college professors proved to be compassionate individuals who not only helped Olivia with organizing the funeral, but also persuaded her to continue her studies. Moreover, the director of the secondary educational institution managed to secure an enhanced scholarship for the student through her own channels, which helped Olivia successfully complete her education. Throughout all this time, Olivia was lonely. Even after college, she had little time for relationships. She was searching for a job to pay bills, eat decently, and dress passably according to the season. Despite the city being large and populous, finding a job without experience turned out to be an extremely difficult task. Not that there were no job offers at all. However, for instance, her experience working in a canteen for electric train operators, located in a recreational facility for rotating locomotive crews, showed that the meager wages were clearly not worth standing by the stove all night and lingering into the morning to feed perpetually dissatisfied men fresh breakfasts. The decision to work in a canteen at a large factory yielded a similarly negative experience. The workload was so heavy that there was barely enough strength to mindlessly make it home, hastily bathe in the bathhouse, and collapse into bed exhausted, only to wake up in the morning to begin a new cycle of chores and worries. Years went by. Jobs changed. Meanwhile, Olivia's age was approaching what they call middle age. No, of course, Olivia wasn't entirely without male attention. Over time, some relationships occasionally sprouted. But all attempts by representatives of the male gender to enter Olivia's life and establish themselves in it were, to put it mildly, somewhat reckless and mismatched, which is why they usually lasted no longer than a year. However, there was one mishap, an unplanned pregnancy resulting in the birth of her daughter Anya and a new cycle of survival, as Olivia had to juggle work and raising her daughter. This period was remembered by Olivia as an endless black streak. No, she loved her little girl with all her heart and went to great lengths to ensure that Anya had everything other children her age had. But to provide her child with a decent standard of living, the young mother had to go above and beyond, striving to earn a certain amount every month. Until Anya turned 7 and gained some independence, the young mother didn't even consider changing jobs. There simply wasn't time for it. It was only when the acute phase passed into the past, and with accumulated work experience, Olivia decided to try her luck and re-enter the job market. Unexpectedly, she managed to change the situation and switch the color of her streak. Galina, the head of several private enterprises specializing in custom pastry production, was able to see potential in Olivia, who came to apply for a job with her. A tall, statuesque woman of Balzacian age clearly had the capacity to work in regional government. She excelled in all matters she undertook. However, having been left without a husband at the beginning of the 90s, she was forced to survive on her own, raising her son Nikita and concentrating on building her own business. By the 0 years, she had become a well-known and respected entrepreneur in the city. At the time of the narration, Galina was significantly expanding her production, attempting to open a network of small cafes to pass on to her son Nikita, who had been involved in the family business almost from his teenage years. This is why she urgently needed new staff to meet the growing needs of the expanding business. The fateful conversation took place in a small, 2-story administrative wing attached to the pastry factory building. It was in this refined, attractive, modern annex that Galina had her office, as well as several departments, personnel, and accounting. Galina herself had not built anything. She had taken over and renovated the building that had been abandoned since Soviet times. However, this endeavor took years and a colossal amount of resources. After carefully reviewing Olivia's employment history, the authoritative woman asked, "So, you've worked in quite a variety of places. Why did you leave your last job?" Olivia believed that she had hit the ceiling of her financial and professional development. Honestly, directly, and intelligently replied Olivia, which greatly impressed Galina. "Is that so?" Galina decided to further test her potential employee. "So, do you see opportunities for professional growth with me?" "You know, Galina, my grandmother used to say, a soldier who doesn't want to become a general is no good. Of course, I don't expect the world. But if a promotion is offered, I won't refuse it. I have another saying on this matter: take what's given. Run if they hit. I can't ignore it. I'm not in that position." "You have a very interesting way of thinking, Olivia. Understand me correctly. When women come to apply for a job with me..." Galina paused for a second, choosing the right word, which didn't escape Olivia's attention. "My position, wealth, and level of education." "I understand." Olivia finished the awkwardly interrupted phrase for Galina herself. "There's no need to deceive. If I were in your place, I would have a whole series of questions for me too. But, as they say, what we have." "Exactly," Galina interjected. "People of your status rarely reason like you do. Moreover, they may cause problems later on. For example, disappearing for a few days because, forgive me, they hit the bottle. Do you indulge? The last time I had a drink was at my grandmother's funeral. 7 or 8 years ago. I don't remember exactly. Is that so? Galena's perfectly groomed eyebrows raised. Then I can congratulate you. You're hired. Go to the HR department. I'll give the necessary instructions. Thank you, Galena. You won't regret it. I certainly hope not. Empowered by her success, Olivia entered the HR department and encountered a young woman who cast a disdainful glance at Olivia from the threshold. As soon as Olivia stepped into the office, she realized that the HR employee was on the phone with her boss, from whose office Olivia had literally just emerged a couple of minutes ago. So, she modestly stood at the counter and discreetly examined her future colleague. The woman from HR was a very beautiful and striking middle-aged brunette. Despite the fact that the stranger was sitting on a chair, from Olivia's perspective, it was evident that she clearly frequented the gym in her spare time to stay in shape. She spared no expense on manicures and other cosmetic procedures, which made her look very, very impressive. The piercing brown eyes and slightly fierce expression suited the HR employee well. But Olivia herself, looking at her future colleague face to face for the first time, found it difficult to withstand that piercing gaze, which literally oozed irritation. Trying to distract herself somehow, Olivia began to survey the surrounding space and discovered a plaque on which the position and full name of the employee were written, Eloise. Very well, I understand you, Galena, said Eloise, then hung up the phone. She then turned her gaze to Olivia and remarked, So, you're the new factory manager? And all this without even a higher education? Well, well. New manager? Olivia was equally surprised. Oh, don't pretend to be surprised by this circumstance. Eloise reached for the folder of documents. I'll have everything prepared today. You can start working tomorrow. Your office in the factory is behind the wall. And remember, managing production is not just about baking cakes. You need to keep track of documentation, understand safety procedures, and who knows what else. But, as they say, management knows best. Apparently, Galena saw potential in you. Oh, hello, Nikita. Unexpectedly, the HR representative interrupted her disgruntled monologue and smiled. Good day, Eloise. It was evident that Galena's son had inherited the best traits from his mother, as he bore a striking resemblance to her, and also possessed a tall stature and broad shoulders of someone familiar with sports. Have you prepared the personnel report I asked for? Yes, here it is. Eloise handed over a document enclosed in a file. And you, excuse me. Galena shifted his attention to Olivia, who stood to his left. Olivia, the woman, feeling somewhat lost upon meeting a stranger, as she had not yet fully processed the information that unexpectedly made her the manager of a large confectionery factory. And your surname? Clarified Nikita. Excuse me. By patronymic, Vladimirovna. By surname, Olivia. So, my mother spoke about you, he deduced. Your mother? Oh, you don't know anything. My mother is Galena. And she just told me that she appointed you as the manager. She never makes a wrong choice. My name is Nikita. We'll often cross paths in our work because your products are supplied to my cafe chain, which I'm trying to expand. So, farewell. The man smiled warmly before disappearing down the corridor. You may go, muttered the HR representative through her teeth, clearly feeling neglected by her boss's son. Tomorrow before work, come here and sign a couple of documents. After this conversation, events unfolded at a rapid pace. To say that it was difficult for Olivia during this period would be an understatement. But fortunately, her daughter Anya was independent and wise beyond her years, so she didn't create obstacles for her mother, but instead was delighted with her new appointment and took on a significant portion of the household chores, including cooking. Speaking of cooking and managing are two fundamentally different activities. However, both involve a hint of creativity, which just needs to be recognized. And everything started to fall into place for Olivia when she caught the rhythm and saw that managing the team's workload and ingredient deliveries could be handled, akin to conducting a diverse musical ensemble. And when this realization came, the disjointed cacophony suddenly transformed into a harmonious melody, constantly evolving. Her intensity varied depending on the situation. It took a long time, over 6 months, for Olivia to delve into all the processes, and only by the end of her first year at her new job did she enroll in an institute, pursuing a degree in personnel management, albeit through distance learning. She felt a lack of specialized knowledge in certain areas. Galina supported her new subordinate with enviable perseverance on her arduous path to becoming a middle-level manager. No, she didn't forgive mistakes. She meticulously criticized every slip-up in her office. She even withheld bonuses several times. Yet, for some reason, Olivia felt that this all-powerful boss was merely showing her care. So, she didn't take offense, but, rolling up her sleeves, doubled her efforts. Indeed, Olivia had to periodically meet with Nikita to coordinate the necessary product volumes for his expanding cafe chain. And each meeting ended not only with discussions of business matters, but also with pleasant chats over a cup of coffee or tea. It became increasingly clear during these moments that lonely people cared about each other. Nikita attributed his loneliness simply to not having met the one. But he didn't actively pursue it, letting events unfold naturally. Therefore, when business relations evolved into sympathy and sympathy morphed into flirtation, Olivia appreciated the fact that Galina didn't shower her with endless promises, but rather slowly and methodically developed their connection. Yes, Nikita had a reputation as a notorious womanizer, a topic whispered about by women at the production lines. But Olivia herself never took rumors and intrigues surrounding colleagues at work seriously. So, she preferred to gently respond to his subtle courting, whether it came from her boss or a colleague. When Olivia moved to her second year and became deeply immersed in her studies, an unexpected progression occurred in their relationship. Nikita once offered to give her a ride home after work, and Olivia agreed. Although she sincerely understood that her living conditions, albeit improved over time, might greatly surprise a wealthy man. But unexpectedly for herself, she made a mistake. My mom and I also lived like this in childhood, Nikita smiled, observing the modest household of the single woman with a child. Only there were no high-rise buildings nearby. Just forests. I somehow miss that now. The wealthy businessman dreamily extended. You can come here for those sensations, Olivia laughed, having long since switched to informal, with her colleague in a relaxed atmosphere. And where's your daughter? During their regular chats, Galina was informed about many nuances of Olivia's life. She's asleep. Had a busy day. Did her homework, tidied up at home, and even cooked dinner for her clueless mother. How independent of her. And does she sleep soundly? Well, she's never complained about restless sleep. Why do you ask? This very question, why do you ask, turned into a wedding after a year. It was evident that Galina, at first, wasn't overly enthusiastic about such a union, but eventually accepted her son's choice. They didn't bother with changing surnames. It would have required redoing a huge stack of documents, which would have been detrimental to the common cause, so Olivia remained Olivia. But as life goes for many people, just when you think the dark times have finally dissolved into the past, they resurface. Many women share a common problem. They overly trust men who, in their efforts to win the hearts of various ladies, demonstrate only their bright side. No, Nikita wasn't a despot or someone constantly glued to a bottle. He greatly appealed to Anya as well, as he became a cheerful and responsive stepfather, a friend. Galina simply grew tired of Olivia quickly, leading him to constantly seek distractions elsewhere. Moreover, he didn't even particularly conceal his actions, believing that such behavior was natural for a man and should simply be accepted as it is. However, what Olivia particularly valued in this marriage was the gradual closeness that developed with Galina, who became a true mentor to her daughter-in-law and subordinate. But when Olivia entered Galina's circle of trust, a very frightening circumstance came to light. The powerful and strong woman had been suffering from a serious illness for many years. That's why she did everything to experience as much as possible in this mortal world and leave her son with a fully functioning business. Therefore, the decision to open a cafe chain was a kind of test for her son. which, by the way, he passed with a good rating, according to his influential mother. The situation with her husband's perpetual carousing was further complicated. Then, when Olivia literally caught Nikita red-handed in infidelity, and not just with anyone, but with the head of the rapidly expanding HR department, Eloise. Moreover, the marital infidelity occurred right in the midst of a busy workday when the couple simply forgot to lock the door behind them. Nikita quickly retreated, citing urgent matters, leaving his wife and mistress to finish the unpleasant conversation they had started. The scandal was kept quiet to avoid drawing the attention of subordinates. Do you even realize that I've been seeing Nikita for a very long time? Eloise hissed in the kitchen, away from prying eyes. Our relationship started long before you came into the picture, and it would have continued if you hadn't shown up here. But he chose me. Only because his mother can't stand me, although she tolerates me as a high-class professional. And if you haven't figured it out yet, we only took you in as a cover so that Galina's last days could be spent in peace and with the sincere feeling that everything is fine with Nikita. How dare you? Don't be foolish. You won't get anything. Everything will go to Nikita. And to me. Olivia, Eloise sighed wearily. Just accept the truth. Nikita and I deliberated for a long time on who should play the role of his wife. And you were chosen only because we sincerely believe that due to your nobility and upbringing, you won't reveal our cards to Galina, who doesn't have much time left. You wouldn't want to tarnish the last days of your mother-in-law, who pulled you out of the dirt into a noble position, would you? Olivia remained silent. That's it. Eloise nodded approvingly, as a token of gratitude for your agreement. We're willing to let you keep your position and help with your daughter's education. But please, play your role to the end. I already have to endure your excessive contacts with Nikita. However, I accept him as he is. For which he values me. I haven't interfered and never will interfere in his extracurricular activities. Is that so? Well, forgive me, but I don't understand you. Besides, you yourself said that I'm a woman of different upbringing. Do you condemn me? For your views on life, no. For deceiving yourself, yes. When Galina is gone, I'll ask for a settlement. And I don't need any help. As you wish, Eloise smiled satisfactorily. We won't hold on to anyone. Every day, Olivia committed real violence against herself to portray a happy marriage with Nikita in front of the fading Galina. Nikita, of course, was aware of the unpleasant conversation between his wife and mistress. He was sincerely grateful to Olivia for the stage spectacle. Sooner or later comes that terrifying and very sad moment when one must have the final conversation with a dying person. And Olivia felt a profound emptiness as she sat beside Galina's deathbed, a person whom she sincerely respected and even loved in some way. "Hello, dear," said the once majestic Galina with a weak voice. "My life's race is coming to an end. It's just a pity I never got to see my grandchildren. But considering how freely my son roamed, I'm sincerely convinced that a couple of my continuations are out there somewhere." Nonsense, Galina. Nikita is a model husband. Olivia. I've never been foolish. I perfectly understand the entire pretense of your marriage, and I've long contemplated what to do with this situation. From a business standpoint, Nikita is commendable. But from the perspective of building family relationships, he's barely passing. But he has never harmed me or Anya. "And that's why you're wearing no expression now," smirked the mother-in-law weakly. "Of course, I leave with a heavy heart. But I believe justice will prevail. And I ask you to take the old wallet on the desk and come with it to the reading of the will. Just promise that until my last will is read, you won't open it. And when you do, don't hesitate to show your son what's inside. It's all rather mysterious, Galina. Just call me Galina. There's no time for formalities now. And you just have to believe." After the modest funeral, attended only by the closest people, in a solemn atmosphere, the deceased's last will was read and confirmed. Since there was no need for secrecy anymore, in a small room, in the presence of a lawyer and a notary, as well as several relatives, Nikita sat, with Eloise beside him and only in the far corner. Olivia, as she once sat at the back desk during her school education. By the way, she felt exactly the same, like an outcast and a woman deprived of simple female happiness. Yet this time, Olivia behaved calmly and dignified, trying not to reveal her inner torment. As expected, the entire business passed into Galina's ownership. Some of the relatives also received large sums and valuable gifts from the deceased woman. "Does anyone have anything to add or object?" asked the notary wearily. Respected attendees, Olivia rose from her seat. Before leaving, Galina bequeathed to me a wallet, which she asked to be opened only after you finish reading the last will. Moreover, she asked to open it demonstratively, which I am doing, as I deeply respected my mother-in-law. Very well. The notary was greatly surprised by this intervention. "Then please take my place." Opening the old wallet, Olivia found a sheet folded into quarters. On this sheet, written in a well-known handwriting, above the main text was a very weighty title, Addendum to the Will. At the bottom of the sheet, there was not only a date, signature, and decryption, but also Galina's personal seal. The main text of the addendum was brief. "I request to make changes to my previously drafted last will. The main innovation is to divide the business between Nikita, Galina, and Olivia. Furthermore, there followed strict regulations on who gets what and in what proportions. But it all boiled down to Nikita receiving the cafe chain, while Olivia, the confectionery production." "Is that so?" smirked Galina's son. "Well, this, as you say, new will still needs to be proven." "There's no need to prove anything," the lawyer, a hefty, graying man in his 50s, with a very unpleasant criminal appearance, who had been formally present until now, leaned over the sheet and began speaking in a low, smoky voice. "I was informed that Galina would make changes to her previous decision. Hence, she asked me to confirm the truthfulness of the words written here." "So, do I have problems now?" Olivia visibly tensed, becoming serious. "No, no problems at all." The lawyer took the sheet in his hands and, like a virtuoso magician, flicked his lighter. "I believe there are no interested parties here in reconsidering the previously adopted decision." The gathered people nodded in agreement. "Therefore, Olivia, I would ask you to leave the room." Which Olivia did, unable to influence the situation in any way. No, nothing returned to square one. Olivia had enough experience to open her confectionery. The house, on the outskirts of a major city, was similarly seriously renovated and modernized. There was no longer any need to plant potatoes, so the significantly taller fence now only enclosed a smooth lawn and several decorative bushes. 2 years had passed since that unpleasant incident when Galina's will was altered in the most audacious and despicable manner. And Olivia, gritting her teeth, admitted to herself that she had made a mistake by entrusting such an important document to a previously unfamiliar person. No, she didn't want to own a part of the Galina business empire. But with all her being, she wanted justice. When a person wants something very, very much, reality itself begins to conform to the flow of will, desires, and thoughts. Resting after another busy workday, Olivia absent-mindedly watched TV when a significantly grown and improved Anya appeared at the doorstep. "Mom, there's a woman outside begging you to come out. She has a very big and beautiful car. Did she introduce herself?" "No one. She says she knows you well." "Well, all right then." Olivia reluctantly rose from her seat and headed towards the gate. Learned from bitter experience, the owner of the confectionery turned on the camera on her phone to capture everything that happened. She discreetly placed the phone, with just the corner protruding, in the coat pocket, which she often threw on before briefly stepping out into the yard. As the hostess of the improved house approached the entrance to the premises, she was immensely surprised by the identity of the evening visitor. "My goodness! Who do I see?" Eloise in person. The former HR manager automatically corrected her former colleague, "But that's temporary." "What do you mean? Shall we get into the car?" "No. Moreover, I have an alarm button from the local security company installed in the house. And they come very quickly if you press it." Olivia demonstrated the button, stylized as a keychain attached to the keys. "Don't worry. There will be no need to press it." "So, what brings you here?" "I have a proposition." With each sentence uttered at the gate, Olivia's eyes widened. It turned out that Eloise was not playing a double, but even a triple game. A woman deeply offended by the fact that Galena refused to accept her into the family, seemingly sensing the rot, harbored a great deal of resentment. Secretly meeting with Nikita, this very resourceful individual was simultaneously involved with another man, quite well known in certain circles, as her second lover. He was a seasoned criminal, but later transformed into a legitimized businessman, establishing his enterprise by leasing commercial spaces as property. It was this individual who persuaded ex-Eloise to meticulously scrutinize any paper correspondence to identify the vulnerabilities of the firm. For a long time, no leads were found until Galena decided to rewrite her will. Being the founder of her small business empire, she was never foolish. Just a few days before her departure, she duplicated the changes to her last will and requested Eloise to fulfill her final request, to send copies to the notary chamber and several other governmental bodies. Upon opening the letters, Eloise realized she had obtained a real trump card in her hands. And since the secret was out and she had certain agreements with Nikita, she informed the lawyer that a sensational statement would be made during the reading of the deceased woman's last will. And the specialist was banally prepared for such a turn of events. As Eloise told all the people involved in the scheme, she destroyed her copies. But since this was only the first act of a well-thought-out plan, she kept the invaluable sheets for herself in the drawer. Then came the wedding with Nikita. And this time, the man felt what it was like to be deceived and betrayed, as now Eloise was caught hand in hand with her lover, Valerie. Naturally, she did not forgive the betrayal. And Eloise didn't really want that either, as she was just waiting with Valerie for the moment when the cafe chain would finally expand to become jointly acquired property, which would be conveniently divided in half after a high-profile divorce. In turn, Eloise simply suggested to Olivia to take over the confectionery factory, but with one important condition: the subsequent sale and division of money in a ratio of 2/3 to Nastia and Valera and 1/3 to Olivia. So you'll get quite a lot, and justice will be restored, concluded her former colleague. Fine, I'll think about it, nodded Olivia. Just until morning. And I'm sure you'll make the right decision. You know, during our time working together, I've even come to respect you. You're truly determined and intelligent. Eloise managed to force a smile out of herself. But it turned out badly, she sighed. Well, that's it. I'll be here around 10 tomorrow. Maybe with Valerie. Excellent, Olivia feigned joy. As Eloise's luxurious SUV disappeared into the courtyards of the skyscrapers, Olivia walked through her homestead in deep contemplation where she had spent most of her life. In her mind, images from the past surfaced one after another: how she was forced to move here after her mother's death, how she felt self-conscious about her appearance in the streets, hence avoiding the crowded district by taking the longer route. How she first stepped through these gates to start training as a pastry chef, how at these very gates stood her grandmother's coffin, escorted by a few neighbors on her final journey, how she hesitated to accept or reject her offer, which completely changed her life, how well Nikita treated her daughter. When all the pieces of the past came together into a cohesive life picture, the woman made the only right decision for herself. She dialed the number from memory and told him about the impending plans. Indeed, Eloise had to give exactly half of the cafe chain, as the law very precisely regulates property division after divorce. However, thanks to Olivia's intervention, Nikolai retained almost 75% of his assets. Knowing full well that the first wife, acting in conscience, was putting herself in great danger, she reinforced the security of the house and took Olivia and Anya back with him. Gradually, as the investigations progressed, communication was restored. And at some point, when they were alone, Nikita and Olivia met in the common living room of the house. At that moment, the man silently knelt before his ex-wife and hugged her legs tightly. There was so much sincerity in this gesture that Olivia keenly felt her former husband's remorse. This was followed by lengthy conversations during which many discrepancies in the situation were resolved. But Nikita was able to prove to her that he had drawn colossal conclusions from this story. Furthermore, feeling the pain of betrayal firsthand, he vowed to himself that he would forever abandon his reckless way of life when he tried to build his next relationship. Another year passed from all these investigations, and a cry resounded through the spacious Galena house, the cry of a robust and healthy son, brought from the maternity hospital. Anya was overjoyed by her little brother, in whom a true sisterly instinct and an irresistible urge to care for this little and so dear human being awakened. They also decided not to sell the house on the outskirts of the city. They kept it as a shared country house where they could relax after their pressing affairs. Eloise and Valerie didn't fare well. The couple foolishly squandered their acquired assets, after which Karatkov gave his companion the boot. Nikita and Olivia learned about this from distant mutual acquaintances, but they didn't delve deeply into the situation, as they lived happily and were not very interested in the problems of other families. One night, Olivia dreamt of a younger and fresher Galena. "Hello, daughter-in-law," smiled her mother-in-law. "You almost lost my wallet." "Indeed," smiled back Olivia, who didn't realize she was dreaming and that the person opposite her had long been gone. "No big deal. The main thing is that everything turned out the way I wanted. By the way, I'm glad that Nikita has changed. Now, when it comes to building a family, he's not just a passable student, but even an excellent one." "And who?" chuckled Olivia. "A straight-A student," Galena smiled broadly before fading away.